Ready?
We're ready.
Okay. Hey everyone, welcome back to Quality Matters. I'm your hostess, Darcy Chambers.
And I'm Kyle.
Thanks for joining us.
Woohoo!
I don't know why I said that. You're here every time.
Yeah.
All right, we are starting a new mini-series, as I mentioned on the last episode, that I hope I finish the book in time that we can do the series all together. This one is the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Stephen
Classic.
Covey. So this time I don't have my notes typed out. I'm just going to use the book to help me. This first episode is borrowing strength and skipping steps.
Okay.
So before he even gets into the habits, he talks about inside out, which makes sense. You have to work on the inside before you can expect the outside environment to change around you, because you can't control anybody else. All you can control is yourself.
That is a hard lesson for a lot of people to learn.
It is. Even me. I'm learning it.
It is. Again, though, like going back to quality in the workplace, I mean, that's a real hard lesson right there, because you've got certain ways you want things to go. You've got certain practices you want people to follow. Something as simple as a form. You want people to fill out a form. Well, dadgum, you better make that form friendly to fill out. Otherwise, they're not going to do it.
Right.
So, in any case.
So he talks about our development and how if it's something physical, it's pretty easy to tell how you are in your development. For instance, he gives a couple of examples, but as a personal example, our son is in band for the first year. He's playing the French horn. That's the instrument that chose him, as they say. And he does not like to practice at home.
But he wants to be good.
He wants to be good. He enjoys playing. He enjoys being in band and playing the horn. And, you know, for a couple of weeks, he would stay after school for a while and practice, but he just does not like to practice at home. And in band, they require all the students to do private lessons.
Oh, yeah, this was fun.
But that's during school.
Which is really cool.
It's
really,
nice.
really awesome setup.
And they have scholarships to help with it if you can't pay for it, so it's all nice. But I think it was the night before his private lessons, and he said something about practicing, and he really needed help because his private lesson teacher was going to make him go back to the beginning of the band book if he didn't do a good job.
And played nothing but whole notes.
Okay, well, I didn't remember that part. So he was really worried about that, and he wanted to get on his horn and play, and I guess he did what he needed to do because he had his private lessons, and he didn't have to go back to the beginning, and he's staying after school again, so he's doing the work. But that's just all to say we could see his development, and his his teachers could see his development, and that it wasn't quite progressing as it needed to be. That's something easy to identify and find out.
Yep.
However, this book talks about your emotional development, and that's not as easy to identify. And he talks about lots of examples. He talked about a father and the daughters and the wife, talks about how harsh the father is. And he talked to the father, and he intellectually knew, yeah, I know, but I don't know how to fix it.
Yeah.
So it's like, even if we know we're not developed where we need to be, we don't know how to fix it. And he goes on to talk about in the business world, skipping this natural process, and you try to get your employees, your staff to buy in, and you give these strong speeches, and you give training, and you give interventions, and you do mergers and acquisitions, like all the business schemes you can think about.
And then nothing changes.
And nothing changes because you're ignoring the natural principles and processes on which a high trust culture is based. That's straight from the book. I copied that. There you go.
It's true. It is so freaking true. It does not matter how, I say it doesn't matter. It matters, but it is not the first thing. How strongly and passionately and forcefully you want something to happen. Everyone has their own motivations. And, you know, I was talking to Jesse about this on the way to school this morning.
That's our oldest son.
Yes. It's like you're only going to get people to change for one of 3 reasons. Is one, you force them to where there is direct coercion. Like
we're going to talk about that.
Yeah. The other way is you inspire them to where it kind of ignites something inside them to where they have their own desire to do it. Or 3, you scare them. That's it. You can't motivate anyone any other way.
So, he tells a story, and I think a lot of us can, if you're a parent, you can relate to this. I definitely related to this. His daughter was having a third or fourth birthday party, I can't remember. She had opened up all her presents, and of course, all the kids wanted to play with all these new toys.
Right.
And she was kind of huddled in the corner with all her toys, and he walks over and says, "What's the matter?" And they all wanted to play with the toys. And I think at first he tried to be, why don't you just share with your friends?
Yeah,
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
And, I imagine our 4-year-old daughter who does not want to share, but when
No.
she wants her brothers to share,
heck
she
yeah.
says, sharing is caring.
Right.
But she doesn't believe that when it's her turn to share.
No.
And so he just said, "Oh, honey, why don't you share?" "No," she says flatly. No other details, just a simple no. So then he tried to reason with her. "Well, if you share your toys here at your house now, then when you go to their house, they'll share with you." Also have done that.
Yeah,
I have said that to our kids. Again, no. So then, he's getting embarrassed as a dad. There's all these parents watching him.
So he couldn't ignite anything in her to do it.
He could not, and now he's starting to care what these people think.
So I'm feeling coercion's about to occur.
So there's a little bribery, also known as coercion. "Well, if you share, I'll give you a special surprise. I'll get you some gum."
How often does that happen with bonuses in the workplace? Oh, okay.
Well, we just talked about that, right? On one of our last few episodes, what gets measured gets done. So, and then it says she exploded. "I don't want gum." She exploded. So now it's not a quiet conversation between dad and daughter.
Yep.
Like now not only does everybody see that that she's not sharing.
Right.
Now it's becoming a bit of a temper tantrum, but to be fair to her, she's already answered him.
Mm-hmm.
She just wants to be left alone with her new toys.
Yeah.
Okay. So now Dad, Stephen Covey, is exasperated, so he resorts to fear and threatening and says, "Unless you share, you will be in real trouble."
Right.
Of course, no actual consequence, but "You're in big trouble, Missy."
Right.
And she cries, "I don't care. These are my things. I don't have to share." So then he resorts to force.
Yes.
And takes the toys and gives them to the other kids and says, "Here, play with these."
Uh-huh.
So, obviously looking back, he sees the fault. And again, I think we've all been there with the kids. So his problem was at that moment, he valued the opinion of the other parents watching them, instead of using this moment to be a lesson to his daughter and to himself too. So he talks about he wasn't willing to give patience or understanding, so he expected her to give the things.
Right.
He borrowed strength from his position and authority and forced her to do what he wanted her to do. Did that teach her anything?
Nope.
No, it didn't. So the question is, what happens when that borrowed strength goes away? So, especially thinking about this in terms of kids, at some point, the kids are going to get older. And you're not going to be able to force them to do what you want them to do anymore.
Yep.
And again, we've talked about this with our own kids. They're very active, very stubborn. And so one active, the middle one in particular is abnormally strong.
Yes.
And
yes.
And feels his emotions 100%.
Yes.
Whatever they are, he feels it physically, emotionally, and you're gonna know. And so I have said for a long time, since he was very young, like, we have to find a different way to parent him, because if this ever gets physical, we're gonna lose. Like, spanking's not gonna work.
No. No, once he's a teenager, like, there's no physical force to restrain him.
Yeah, and not that we're physical with our kids at all, but it just was a very early realization for us that we have to do a really good job with this, or we're going to get it wrong in a big way. And so, thinking about kids, and not even take away the physical, at some point the kid realizes, because I'm your parent or because I said so,
is no longer enough.
Yeah, once they turn 18, because I said so, it doesn't matter.
Nope.
And so, and really, I mean, 16 or 15,
Right.
you
Well,
know.
even then, but that's kind of going back to what I was talking about here, and what he hinted at there is you've only got 3 ways you're going to get someone to do something. And so if fear and force don't work, the only thing you're left with is to inspire something inside them, which is what you started with here.
Yeah, so what happens when the borrowed strength is gone?
Yeah.
Okay, inspiring speech comes along.
Right.
Great, we're all fired up.
And then 2 minutes later, it's gone.
You know, I go back to when I was in education. Every year we had they called it the convocation. We had a big speech, a big speaker, somebody would pay to come in. The whole school district would sit in an auditorium, and we'd listen to, we get all fired up. It's so exciting. And then you're like a week into the school year, and that speech is long gone. That doesn't matter anymore. It wasn't, I mean, it was intrinsic in me because I love teaching and I love the kids that I worked with. But,
there's actually the podcast we were listening to this morning. We were listening to Jordan Peterson podcast. But this is a topic that I've thought about a lot before, and you run into in the workplace a lot, is you have to set up the environment such that the environment tells you how to behave and how to act and how to proceed through the world. And I use the example of forms all the time because we all fill out forms in our job, whether it's on the computer or it's on paper, but the form itself can substitute for a procedure because just by virtue of the way it flows, you fill out this section and you fill out that section. It's like if they have a field for name and all it says is name, you don't know, do I put first name? Do I put last name? Do I put my middle initial? You don't know. It's not very clear. But if you have a box for first name and you have a box for middle and you have a box for last, I like those the best because I go by my middle name. So when they say first name, I'm like, well, I don't want anyone to call me Douglas, so I'm going to put Kyle there as first name. So when they have a spot for first name, middle initial, last name, like, woohoo, I know what to do. So how you set up the environment that people are working in or that your kids are interacting in or your students are in, how you set up that environment is just as important as those speeches and as those procedures you've written and as all of these other tools that we've got to maintain it. That environment has to be set up such that people know what to do.
It's so funny that you talk about environment because, I've mentioned it so many times on this podcast about education and how everything I learned there totally relates to this. And I mean, we had classes on classroom environment, setting up the environment for learning, and we need a comfy reading area, we need chart paper, we need a meeting area for the whole class. I need a reading table where I can meet with groups, and making it colorful and kids spend a lot of time in that classroom. It needs to be somewhere that you want to spend a lot of time in.
On the last podcast, I talked about a mistake I'd made early on with job travelers and having folks scan a barcode and whatnot. Well, part of the problem I had while they wouldn't scan the stinking barcode I gave them is they didn't have anywhere to set the paper. And their hands were grimy and dirty. And so it's like they're standing at the barcode and they're trying to hold this floppy piece of paper with 4 of them, 5 of them stapled together. And they're trying to do that with dirty work gloves. Like, it's a terrible environment. So what we get? We get people pencil whipping it and just scanning the shop mop step instead. So if the environment's not set up for success, no amount of coercion, no amount of anything is going to matter because it's just they're not going to do it.
Well, and then I think about the episode we did a few weeks ago on Walmart and how after Sam Walton died, they've done gimmick after gimmick after manipulation and trying to get people's buy-in, and it's just not working for them. And again, back to education. Modeling was so important for the kids because how do they learn? They learn by watching you do it.
Right.
And it's true for parenting and it's true
the
for
workplace.
in the business.
Yeah.
You have to model how to do things and thinking about the sharing. Well, how do they know how to share if it's never been modeled for them? Have you gotten in the floor and played with your kids and said, "Oh, can I borrow that? Would you like to use my toy?"
Yeah.
That has to be modeled for them.
Well, one of the speech I gave for a presentation I gave at the ASQ, Christmas dinner or whatever. In it, I talked about an example of a landscaper that I'd been talking to. And they had a problem that, it's only like 60% conforming to the original layouts each time they got the work done. And so they're trying to figure out like why they have so many problems. I mean, they gave the guys the drawings and they told the guys exactly the work to do. But they had a high rate of nonconformities. And so that was the solution, is they had a lot of area next to the office. They just created it as a laydown yard. And so he just tells the guys, go out there and you three do it and the rest of you just watch.
Yeah.
And that near killed their issues with nonconformities.
It's modeling. Model. You have to model behavior, you have to model the instruction, you have to model the environment. I mean, everything needs to be set up because once that borrowed strength is gone, it's gone.
Well, and had I tried to do that myself, I wouldn't have run into that problem with the time cards.
Yeah.
If I had gone out and actually put a bead down and gone and tried to scan on that job ticket, I would have found out like that and missed like 2 or 3 months of all sorts of headache. Not to mention the lingering effects.
Well, yeah, and trust lost. The
Yeah.
guys are like, oh, he doesn't care about us.
He's just the guy in the office.
Yeah, exactly. So, I thought this was really applicable to a lot of things we have recently talked about on our episodes, and just it's got to come from within, and people got to believe it, and you've got to model it, and that's to go back to our start with why. We talked about passing that on to your successors and making sure everyone in the company knows. But that's why, if you're modeling it and living it, although I say that Sam Walton clearly lived it and it didn't pass on. So we've also got to communicate it.
But we talk about the quality policy, and any of the quality consulting we do, it's one of the must-haves. You have to have a quality policy and you have to have objectives. And so often we get this very blank, generic stuff in there to provide the best possible service to our clients and shareholders with minimal nonconformities. Like, really? Is that why you're in business? Is that why this quality policy exists? Is just to provide best possible service? And then the objectives is less than 2% defects and less than 1% customer complaints. Really? Is that all you care about? Like, it's not going to go very far.
Yeah.
It's not going to do much. That doesn't inspire anyone. So you've immediately taken a third of your chance to get people to do what you want out of the picture. And now all you're left with is coercion and fear. Good luck.
Well, something that's really important to us in our company is, saving time and energy for what matters most. What matters most to us is our family and our kids, and being able to provide for them and being able to spend time. Like, we don't want to spend all our time providing for them. We want to spend time with them. And, we'll interview. We've got a couple of contract auditors that work for us. And one in particular we talked to recently said, I just don't want to be out of town a lot. I've got my kids. And we're like,
we get it.
Totally understand.
We're good.
We're on board. No problem. I feel like it's such a sad thing that people have to shamefully say, well, I have kids and I don't want to do this part of the job. Like, that should be your priority.
It should. As soon as someone says that they have kids and they have a family, that should trigger a light bulb in your head. This person's got something to work for. This person's got something to sacrifice for. This person, but no, we see this. Oh, that means that we can't.
It's an inconvenience.
Yeah, like it's just it's terrible.
Yeah,
it's terrible. That's where things go.
So I hope you enjoy this episode, and remember to work on yourself. Kyle, of all people, can attest to the fact that I don't really like working on myself. I don't like change very much.
I feel as though I should be quiet right now.
It's hard to get me to do something different. And even sitting in a different chair.
Yeah, I was like, can we just change chairs? She's like, no, I'm a creature of habit. This is where I'm going to sit. Okay.
But I really have enjoyed the Start With Why. I'm really enjoying the 7 habits now. Unfortunately, because I'm on my goal to read all my books, I haven't stopped to do the work, but it's churning. It's churning in my head, and I'm thinking about it. So I hope you guys are enjoying these, and I hope you really see how they matter the quality of work
It
that you
does.
do.
I mean, like, seriously, everything we've talked about here on today's episode, just imagine how this applies to that quality policy. Imagine how that applies to those objectives. And let's get out of that generic statement.
Well, this one, the borrowed strength, can come either from the quality manager or the leader, CEO, whoever that might be. You know, the quality manager, I feel like they have a hard time getting their leader to buy in.
Yes.
So, you know, you've got to find a way to get them to buy in and really believe it. And the
It
leader,
goes, yes.
and if
Yes.
the leader has the buy-in, then he's got to get the whole company to buy in. And you can't do that with borrowed strength.
No.
You can't say, I made these barcodes, you got to scan them.
Right.
Because I said so.
Right.
Like a parent. Because they're not going to do it. It doesn't matter if you say, I mean, whose children have done everything you said because you said so?
Oh, yeah, but that's just the
It happens all the time, right?
Absolutely.
No, kids don't do it. and neither do your employees.
Nope.
So you have to find the real strength that's inside of you to pass on.
Amen. Amen.
All right. Thanks for listening. Okay.